Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, your 38th favorite dad in the family community, Papa West, Jacob West. And I am not here for anything TMG trivia related. I am here for, as you can see in this little corner, I tried to do the borders and it messed up. Movie Battlegrounds. This is the first match of our winners bracket. Sorry, Aaron, we don't have winners and losers in Movie Battlegrounds. Our 1-0 bracket. There you go. I do have a very interesting match for y'all today. I'm gonna go ahead and bring in the first competitor. He is, some would say, the current champion, the last person to hold the belt. I call him Hot Fuzz. Joe, how is it going today?
Not too bad, not too bad. I've had 2 days off work. It's the last one, back tomorrow, so it's been nice and chilled, very relaxed. And I may have completely forgot this was happening and did all my prep in the last couple of hours. But that being said, it's debate. You get time to prep. So I always enjoy it. I enjoy the fact that you get time to prep. And, at least we've done the answers ahead of time. So at least I had something to go off of. But looking forward to debating Kevin. My usual interactions with Kevin is playing in trivia and winning. So let's hope that can continue. But we shall see. We shall see.
Yes. I also love how we coordinated our shirts.
Oh, definitely.
Both wearing green shirts. Wow. So you have my vote in my personal book. Thankfully, my personal book does not matter as I kick you out in the back, and you spoiled it like a punk. His opponent, Kevin, the Philosopher Poss, my teammate, one of my best friends. Kevin, how's it going today?
It's going well. I am very nervous. I obviously missed the green memo, but yeah, this is gonna be a fun one. I, like Joe, have not had as much time in my life with the whole marriage thing coming up, and TMGeek filling my life with joy, and prepping for championship matches and geek for alls and all that good stuff, but. Nonetheless, the time is nigh, so it's time to do this thing, and we're gonna do it. So I'm very excited to be able to play or compete against a person with such a caliber as Joe. So I feel like I have really nothing to lose here. Joe is a great competitor. Win, lose, or draw. I feel like I've won already just by getting to this position. So I'm gonna give him a fight, and then we'll see what happens.
Definitely, we'll see what happens. Love the confidence and not saying, "Hey, I'm gonna kick your butt," because you never know what happens.
And hey, we've both been prepping for that geek for all.
This is true. This guy has been helping in way more behind the scenes than you think. So even though he's not in it, he's definitely been helping.
Well, there's at least one question that we will talk about today that does help by studying for the Geek for All. The other three, we will see. As I have alluded to, I'll go ahead and talk about the rules of this. The way Movie Battlegrounds work is it is the first to 3 points wins. We have 5 rounds, 4 predetermined questions, all about movie knowledge. If by chance there's a tie after the 3, there is a blind round that we will get into later. But since we're only doing rounds 1 through 4 first, I will talk about those. Each round is going to have 4 stages. You have a 60-second opening, 2-minute solo pitch to help build your argument, 4-minute open debate. This is for both of y'all to talk to each other. Please no yelling at each other. Please no talking over each other as much as you can. And then stage 4 is the 60-second close. Afterwards, I will go to our 3 judges who we have. Let's go ahead and say their names now. Jake Tano, Noah McCausland, and a man who claims to be Malcolm. They will give their points at the end. Y'all will get that later on. We all know why it's funny. But they will let us know who gets their point and why. Whoever is the first to get 2 judges' points wins the point. And again, it is the first to 3 legitimate points wins this match. So I'm pretty sure I've talked about everything so far. So, Aaron, if I missed something, I am sorry. You can fix this in post. But we will go ahead and start off with question number 1, which I'm going to bring up right here. What is the worst animated film from Disney Animation Studios of all time? Me as a father, I've seen many of these videos many times. My question to you is, which one is the worst? Kevin, we're going to go ahead and start off with you.
My choice for the worst animated film from Disney Animated Studios is 2003's Brother Bear. Plays and Robert Walker and scored by Phil Collins and Mark Mancina. That sounds like it would be a great combination, but really, there's a lot wrong with this movie. The first third is all about the spirits and seriousness, but then it takes a hard turn into talking animals and silliness. A lot of goofball stuff, mooses and side characters. So Brother Bear definitely missed the mark when it comes to keeping parents interested, keeping kids interested. There's even a frame change in the middle of the film. So I will get to all that as we move forward in my debate. I will relinquish the rest of my opening argument time.
All right, Kevin choosing to allow 15 seconds go by the wayside. So with that, Joe, as the time finishes up, it will restart again. And whenever you see the time go away, that is when you can start talking. So you have a couple more seconds left of me vamping.
Good filler. Good filler.
All right, it should be resetting here pretty soon.
Disney animation has had many iterations. The classic era, 30s to mid 80s, the Renaissance era, 80s to 90s, the modern greats era for the last 21 years. Dotted in between that is little periods of bad movies, and the early 2000s might well become to be known as the oof era. And 2005 had the worst Disney animated movie of all time, a Zach Braff-led disaster called Chicken Little. This movie is the worst example of what Disney can do. It is inconsistent with everything Disney has led us to expect and led us to love over the last, blimey, I'm going to work out in my head, 85 odd years. Disney animation has always had a sense of morality about it, had a sense of a message hiding under what's always and usually a great animated movie. Chicken Little has none of these things, and Zach Braff aside, wastes what should be a really good voice cast. And I will see the rest of my time.
All right, Joe doing the same, not using the rest of his time. That's a better way to put it. So we have Kevin with Brother Bear, Joe with Chicken Little. Kevin, we are moving on to you. It is now your 2-minute free-form debate. This is 2 minutes of just you talking. Time starts when you start.
All right. So as I said, the first third of Brother Bear is all spirits and seriousness. Now we take that hard turn without the moose and the rams and even the seagulls and these boring comedy bits that are just really drawn and repetitive in Brother Bear. The movie would be about 17 minutes long, in all honesty. There's a part in it even where Coda says that he was at the fish catch the year before, so that means he hasn't aged a day in a year. I don't think that's how bears work. All right, and then we'll get into Chicken Little, though. Chicken Little was the second highest grossing film in '05 behind Madagascar, animated wise. There's at least a premise there, a main character, an interesting conclusion. It's not a Pixar film. It's not a very memorable film. But there is, it does have a father. A father that is not the best dad, coming into his own by the end of the movie. He ends up being proud of his son. Buck Cluck is, I think he actually is kind of funny. He does have mentalities of a little bit of a jerk at the beginning, but at least he's consistent throughout the movie, unlike Brother Bear. And at the end, he does become proud of Chicken Little. So at least there are consistencies, unlike in Brother Bear. So I will relinquish the time I have left in this 2 minutes.
All right, Kevin releasing his time. And I don't know if y'all saw it, but with me, just doing this by myself, or doing it without y'all being able to see the time, I just added a little banner. It will pop up with 1 minute. And that'll be used for both the 2 minute and the 4 minutes. So there'll be that little banner to pop up, just so y'all are aware. Joe, it is your turn to close out the 2 minutes solo section. 2 minutes on the clock. Time starts when you start.
The humour in Chicken Little is, for one, very mean-spirited. The only reason we even connect with Chicken Little in the first place is because the townspeople are so mean to him that we kind of have no choice. He makes one small mistake, and they make fun of him to the level of making a movie about his mistake. The slapstick elements are poorly timed, and it's basically just trying to get the audience to laugh at the character they spend the rest of the movie trying to make you feel sorry for. When these feeble attempts of humor don't work, they resort to loud noises to try and give you some excitement. No exaggeration, there are separate 10-second periods of this movie that are just screaming. The movie has one of the worst romance subplot of any Disney movie. You get a tiny hint that Ugly Duckling has a crush on Chicken Little at the beginning, and it's brought up almost nowhere else in the movie until the end, when Chicken Little, out of nowhere, confesses his love for Duckling and kisses her. It makes Snow White's romantic subplot look fully developed by comparison. At this point in time, DreamWorks was having an incredible run of movies with the first two Shreks, The Prince of Egypt, Chicken Run, Road to El Dorado. And I think Chicken Little was Disney trying to be DreamWorks and failing miserably, even dotting in those pop culture references that Shrek, nailed so well. Brother Bear, on the other hand, has no place on the worst of Disney list. It has a really strong moral core, portrays sibling relationships in a way Disney really hadn't tackled before. Still has resonance today, as it teaches perspective, seeing things from your supposed enemy's point of view. And Joaquin Phoenix is great, but we'll have more on him later on in the debate. Brother Bear teaches perspective, morality, and consequences, all under the guise of a magical animated adventure, and that's what Disney has always done. Chicken Little is about a whiny chicken who really should have been part of KFC's menu more than anything else.
Are you conceding the rest of your time?
Yeah, that's everything.
Oh, okay. All right. I enjoyed the little KFC comment. All right. So 4 minutes for both of y'all. Again, this is back and forth. Please try not to talk over each other that much. Time starts when one of you starts.
All right. So
Kevin, I think one of the things you need to realize is that when you look at Disney over the years, there are a lot of things that we're looking back on have been problematic. Things about Ariel giving up, everything she is for a man she hardly knew. Yet with Brother Bear, it is actually teaching about maybe you should, spend a day in what you class as your enemy's shoes. Have a look at the life they have to live. You're trying to kill them. Yes, he killed your brother, but you've also been killing their family for generations. And as soon as he steps into that world and spends time with Coda, he sees the error of his ways, and that's what the movie is about. It still teaches that perspective and moral core, whereas Chicken Little has none of that.
I mean, Chicken Little is not that deep as far as that goes. I mean, there are scenes in Brother Bear that I see what you're saying that lead to that, but there are also scenes in which Tina Turner is singing about driving natives off of their own land. As far as the sacrifice, I mean, he's driving the spear into the ice. It's a reference to the global warming. There's more to it than meets the eye. The once after the first hour, we get the 1.85 to 1 to 2.35 to 1 shift change in aspect, and that can actually work in cinema. In Wizard of Oz, it's worked with the color. It's worked in First Man when it went from IMAX when he was on the moon. It can look cool, but it looks really cheap in Brother Bear because it goes from being that serious movie that you're talking about to being a really cheesy movie with a lot of cheap jokes with the moose and with the rams and the seagulls and things like I talked about before. I mean, we were 20 minutes in the movie and all I had seen were two bears fighting scenes and not a whole lot of story. So the comedy and value runtime is much better in Chicken Little. It lasts a lot longer in Chicken Little as far as over time. You can, I think it is more valuable over time. And as far as the cast, I mean, Adam West, Don Knotts is funny in it. I mean, there are some hidden treasures in there. Dan Molina as Fish Out of Water is actually, those are really funny, even for people my own age. So go ahead if you'd like.
But I think the issue being is that you talk about the sort of the left turn and the sort of the silly humor, but you have to remember this is still a kids movie. This is still Disney. This is still an animated movie for kids, and it has to balance that silly comedy element with the morality of the story. The problem with Chicken Little is there is no morality. The only reason you even feel sorry for Chicken Little in the first place is because the townspeople are so exaggeratedly horrible. Literally, you've got some young kid who thought the sky was falling, and they're like, "Geez, what an idiot this kid is! Let's make fun of him. Let's literally make a movie about how stupid this kid is." Like, that is beyond the level for Disney. There is no morality to the story. There is no perspective, whereas Disney hides that perspective under. And I'm not saying Brother Bear is the next coming of one of the Lion King or movies like Beauty and the Beast, but all I'm saying is it has the morality and perspective hidden under the guise of a magically animated movie that Disney has done so well over the years, whereas Chicken Little is just about a whiny chicken who people are mean to.
But there is a morality even in Chicken Little, because Buck, after regaining the pride and trust in his son, he does defend him from the aliens until they get vaporized, and then
time. All right, great job, both of you. Now we move into the 1 minute close. So that, Kevin, since you started us off, you will be starting off the 1 minute close. Minute on the clock.
Brother Bear is a movie that has a lot of good prospects, with its voice cast. Joaquin Phoenix is in it. It has a lot of good things that it could do, but the right turn that it takes, after the actual the shift with the goofball stuff, and turning from the serious story like what we were talking about earlier, it really loses everybody there, and I think that takes what it could be and makes it the worst Disney movie that's been made. It's very loose, and Phil Collins does a really bad job in the music.
Time. All right, Joe, minute on the clock to close us out.
Brother Bear may have inconsistencies and may miss the mark on certain points, but Chicken Little is consistent in that from start to finish, it is a terrible movie. The humor is poorly set out. It's poorly executed. It's filled with things that do work for kids, but there is no underlying morality. And when we're talking about the worst animated film from Disney, you have to look at what Disney has done and what it's done best over the years. And that is add a sense of morality, add a sense of perspective, and add a lesson. And that is what Brother Bear does. It may not do it the best, but it does it to an acceptable level. That essence of morality, that essence of seeing things from your supposed enemy's point of view is enough of a lesson to put it above Chicken Little and above certain other Disney animated movies. The difference in what makes Chicken Little the worst is that it has none of this. It is a poorly executed movie. It has poor humor. Zach Braff is annoying in the voice of Chicken Little, and it makes it the worst.
Time. All right, we heard the arguments as I kick them both in the back. Now I bring in our judges. All three of y'all. We heard the arguments. Now it is time for y'all to tell us who gets your point and why. Jake was the first one in the call, so Jake, I'm going to go and start off with you.
Good debate, guys. Went with Joe on this one. Ultimately, at the end of the debate, I felt like Brother Bear had some merits, whereas Chicken Little clearly does not. The morals, the comedy, that's where Joe got the point for me.
All right, and with that, Joe getting the first vote. Malcolm, who gets your point and why?
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with both players' picks. Home and the Range is definitely the worst. But that being said, I'm going to pull my answer out of these KFC bucket I've just got here, and I'm going to give it to Joe.
All right. So with that, Joe gets the point. Malcolm gets the bonus points for using props, even if I don't know who you are. You sound familiar. Noah, unfortunately, we're not going to go to you, but
I still have
keep paying
comments,
attention
I still have
because we'll go to
comments,
you next.
because
you
I
still have
love Brother
comments?
Bear. I love Brother Bear, and I can't believe Kevin said that's the worst one. And saying Phil Collins, that Phil Collins soundtrack is horrible. Come on. Anyway.
Okay. All right. Well, you can keep your comments. I'm sure someone cares. I care, kind of. But with that, I'll go ahead and bring in both of our competitors as I update everything.
Despite what you think, Noah, you base it on the arguments, not the choices.
It's so true.
You gotta
All right,
appreciate the
so
argument.
Joe getting the first vote, or the first point as we move on to question number 2. I don't know about y'all, but I love Middle Earth. I love hobbits, elves, dwarves, orcs not as much. So I ask you, what is the most underrated Middle Earth film? Joe, we start. You closed out round 1, so you will start off round number 2. 60 seconds on the clock. Time starts when you start.
I think it's fair to say that the Hobbit trilogy is fairly rated. Probably shouldn't have been 3 movies. Fun and exciting enough, and Unexpected Journey is probably the best one. The Lord of the Rings trilogy, however, is often found being ranked thusly: Return of the King, Two Towers, Fellowship. And I think this is unfair. I think Fellowship has a much harder job than Two Towers, and it has 2 of the hardest jobs you can have in a franchise: set up the world and introduce the characters. I think Two Towers has an easier job, as it doesn't need to set up very much and doesn't have to stick the landing. I think Fellowship is the most underrated. I think a lot of people, when talking about ranking Lord of the Rings movies, tend to go between what's the best, Return of the King or Two Towers. And I think Fellowship deserves to be in that argument for one of the best. And I think it should be more of a 3-way argument, not a 2-way argument. And that's why I think Fellowship is underrated. All 3 of these films are amazing. I just think Fellowship is slightly more underrated than the other 2.
Time. All right. So Joe, starting us off with Fellowship of the Ring. Kevin, 1 minute on the clock to open up your argument. And also to let you know you are muted. So
That would be helpful. All right, my argument is for the Two Towers. I think the Two Towers is the best movie. I believe that it starts us off with action, and it doesn't stop from there. I do think that the Fellowship of the Ring is a bit on the expositional side where it does need to be. I understand that a first movie in any trilogy does have to be expositional, but the Two Towers picks up right exactly where Gandalf is being taken by the Balrog, and it doesn't stop from there. The cinematics are great. The battle scenes are fantastic, and every scene is action from start to finish. You're on the edge of your seat. I love the Two Towers, and I think it is the most underrated.
Time. All right. Joe with Fellowship, Kevin with Two Towers. Please choose your words wisely, as this guy has Return of the King ranked in his top 5 movies of all time. And yes, I will judge y'all for the rest of your lives, depending on what y'all say. Joe, 2 minutes on the clock. Your solo round 2 pitch. Time starts when you start.
I think saying Two Towers is underrated because it's not considered the best when it's often in the discussion for the best is a little would make it not underrated. I think Fellowship always misses out in being in that argument, and it really shouldn't be. It introduces the world and characters seamlessly. The battle sequences, although being smaller, they are more grounded and they feel more personal. You get a great Sean Bean death. Frodo and Sam, I think in the Two Towers, Frodo and Sam's story slows with the introduction of Faramir slightly, which just brings Two Towers down. I think Fellowship's journey flows well. Everyone has a moment, despite having such a large cast. It's all three are visually stunning, but I think Fellowship made us fall in love with the franchise. I think it contains Aragorn's best moment, which is him turning down the ring at Amon Hen before sending Frodo off on his own. I know it's based on books, but Gandalf's death in that movie gave that movie real stakes, and having Boromir's at the end solidified those stakes for the rest of the franchise. The trilogy as a whole is phenomenal and a masterclass in filmmaking. Fellowship stands apart in its more personal approach to the epic as a whole. As the stakes and the grandeur grew, as stakes and the grandeur grew throughout the trilogy, so did the reliance on the visual effects, specifically in the battle sequences. And although it doesn't weaken the sequels, they are slightly diluted because of this. The battle scenes, specifically at Amon Hen and at Weathertop, they feel more personal, they feel more grounded, and people debate whether King or Towers is the best, and that's what, in my opinion, is making Fellowship underrated. Something considered the best cannot be underrated, and Fellowship should be in the mix of that argument, as it does a lot more work than the Two Towers has to do. And I will see the rest of the time.
All right. Kevin, we are moving next to you with your 2 minutes.
As much as I enjoy the quiet setting at the beginning of the film and the green, earthy scenes you see in Fellowship, and the necessity there is in the prologue with Galadriel, I do love the blood and guts and the dark and the muddiness you get in the Two Towers. I love that you get more, you get the introduction basically to the full on Gollum. His journey is complete by the end, from murderous villain at the beginning to forgiving servant in the middle, back to scheming killer at the end. He is just, it's a great character arc in this movie. And something we didn't really expect, unless you're a book reader, of course, but as a film watcher, something you aren't really looking for. So I enjoy that we get the full effect of the Gollum story in that movie. I don't agree that that this one isn't obviously the best, everybody is going to say that Return of the King is the best. So it's basically arguing which one is the second best. So underrated is a hard word to say, but even Frodo and Sam's story, beginning the film Lost, they're not lost just physically, but they're lost mentally, and they have to find themselves using said Smeagol / Gollum. So it's an interesting story, and I'll have more to say in the 4 minutes. I'll relinquish the time.
All right. As we move on to the 4-minute freeform debate, time starts when someone starts talking.
In my opinion, Kevin, Two Towers is the best movie. I think it's a fantastic movie, and I think it is the best. It has, for my opinion, the best battle scene, which is, the Battle of Helm's Deep. It's just incredible. The first time I saw that, I was completely blown away, more than anything that I was in Return of the King. And I think you can't say something underrated when so many people, not just myself, consider it to be the best. You even have to look at the Rotten Tomato scores. Two Towers has the highest at 95%. I mean, we're talking margins here because Return of the King has 93 and Fellowship has 91, but Two Towers is considered critically and across the board, even with audience scores, it still has the highest joint with Fellowship. Return of the King has a lower audience score. We'll get more in that later. But Two Towers is the best. It can't be underrated.
I think it can be underrated. I think if you talk to enough people, especially like in the fan community, I'm not friends with any of these big critics or anybody that votes actually in the Rotten Tomatoes. But as far as Two Towers, you talked about Boromir. As much of a great character he is, we do get Faramir in the Two Towers. And I do think he is a better flawed hero. He's not a villain. He's a flawed hero. A lot of people complain about Two Towers, about Merry and Pippin, about how they are useless, but they're not useless. They do go on to prove how useful they can actually be, with Treebeard and meeting back up with Gandalf. When you talk about the Fellowship of the Ring, though, it's like it breaks down that these are so close in my mind because I do love all these films. It breaks down to things like the first wizard fight between Saruman and Gandalf. I thought that fight was honestly kind of silly, like the way they just the movements, the way that he kind of like brought him up to the roof and things like that. It's more the cinematography to me at this point because these are so close. Like you said, 93 and 95. It's like you're talking about a points difference.
Agreed, but you have to look at the fact that you're talking about cinematography and all that. I believe, and I might need to go over this before I get back into fandom, but I do believe the Fellowship was the only one that was nominated for cinematography in the Oscars category. 11 Oscar nominations, and I admit there is Two Towers that only had, considerably less. But the point of the matter is, the difference between our two arguments is you're saying that Two Towers is underrated, and I'm saying it's the best, so it can't be underrated. And you're saying the Fellowship doesn't deserve to be in the conversation. And I think Fellowship does deserve to be in the conversation. You have to remember that these three movies were made back to back. There is very little difference between, and that's why they flow so seamlessly together. I think Fellowship, although it doesn't have the grandeur of the other two, I think because it is more grounded and because it feels more personal, I think that's what deserves to push it up because it separates itself from the other two for that reason.
Yeah, see, that's my point is actually that I think they kind of got their feel out in the first movie and then they brought it into the second movie and they really hammered it home with, all the cinematics, and they really brought home the blood and the gore and all the fighting, and they were able to produce Helm's Deep, and they were able to get right in your face with all of that cinematic stuff. So, and if that's what's going to separate it, then to me, if Return of the King is the best, which I believe it is, then that makes Two Towers the most underrated. But go ahead if you have anything else.
I just say that then that's the problem. The debate is always between Two Towers and Return of the King, and Fellowship is unfairly kept out of that argument, and it does such a good job, and it has a lot to do.
And time. All right, now we're moving on to the 1 minute close. Joe, you started us off, so you will start off the closing.
The Two Towers is the best Lord of the Rings movie. It's the best Middle-earth movie. It cannot be underrated for that reason. It is the best. Critically, it is the best. Audience score is it's the joint best. When you ask people when you ask out there and ask people what is the best, it's Return of the King or it's Two Towers. Fellowship is very rarely in that discussion. I think that's unfair. You know, it has such a lot of work to do with introducing the characters and introducing you to this world, and it does it seamlessly. All right, it has a 3.5 hour runtime, but so do the others. But the fact of the matter is, it gets through all these points. It gives you so much. The deaths of Gandalf and Boromir give the rest of the trilogy the stakes it deserves. Whereas Two Towers doesn't have that much work to do compared to the other two. It doesn't have to stick the landing. It doesn't have to do any introductions. It gets to flow seamlessly, which is why it is the best, because it gives you everything. But the problem, the Fellowship of the Ring is never considered in that bracket, which it should be, because it does everything perfect. There's a reason it got 11 Oscar nominations. There is a reason it did everything it did. There's a reason people fell in love with this franchise. Reason why people watch an extra half an hour on top of it, because it is phenomenally done.
Time. All right, Kevin, is your turn to close out this argument. 60 seconds on the clock.
As I said, the first wizard fight is a good example to me of the inexperience that Peter Jackson and crew had, and the experience that they carried over into the Two Towers shows the creativity and how much better they got in cinematography. The setting up of Aragorn for Return of the King, the bringing in of Faramir, the journey of Gollum in this story, and not only that, but Gandalf the White, his wink at Aragorn upon the entry of the Golden Halls of Medusel at Edoras, when he sneaks in his wizard staff, it's a seemingly insignificant moment, but it really shapes the rest of the quest, if you think about it, all the way through. So if there's no staff, there's no drawing of Saruman from the cursed King Theoden, no defense of Rohan, no hope for Middle-earth, and therefore that is why I think it's the most underrated Middle-earth film, The Two Towers.
And time. All right, so with that, we will go ahead and take out Kevin and Joe, and there we go, and bring back in our judges. Just a little fact checking that I found that I have to go over. The score of Rotten Tomatoes, yes, Rotten Tomatoes and Rotten Tomatoes are the same thing. Well, not said the same. Fellowship got a 91%, Two Towers 95%, and then Return of the King right in the middle of 93%. So a nice 2% difference in between them. And then I also looked up the final battle of Fellowship is at Amon Hen, also known as Hill of Sight or Hill of the Eye, where it is literally a special hill. And then Helm's Deep, named for Helm Hammerhand, who was a king of Rohan at the time. It was a fortified gorge in the White Mountains. But I could not find anything to find out where was Gondor when the Westfold fell. I don't know.
I can't call it.
With that, Malcolm, we are going to go ahead and start off with you. Who gets your vote and why?
Yeah, I think Kevin definitely had a tough hill to climb with his pick. But my point is going to go to Joe, just because I think Joe managed to sort of get out more clearly about why, in his opinion, Fellowship is underrated. I heard a lot about Kevin about why Two Towers is good. I didn't hear a lot about why it was underrated.
All right, so Joe getting the first. Noah, we are finally letting you talk. Who gets your vote and why?
I wish I could say more about this because I love Lord of the Rings, and I would love to be a part of that conversation. But to keep it short and simple, I'm going to also have to say Joe, just because, like Malcolm said, he was more concise about why it was underrated, not why it was good. But also, it was just the main point for me that it was Two Towers and Return of the King that are looked at as being which one's the best and not Fellowships. That point kind of made it for me.
All right. So with that, Joe is getting the second vote. Jake, thank you for waving as I kick you out in the back. Nothing personal. You know I love you. And I bring back in Joe and Kevin.
I just wanted to make a correction to a point I made in my argument. Fellowship was not only the only one nominated for Best Cinematography, it's also the only one that won Best Cinematography.
I don't care about Oscars.
I remembered it, but I didn't want to say it after the fact because my argument time was over.
All right, so as we move on to question number 3, there are a couple cameos in the Middle-earth franchise. Stephen Colbert happens to be in the second Hobbit film, and I'm sure there are others. That's just the first one that comes to my mind. So I ask you, what is the best cameo in a film of all time? Kevin, you are down 2-0, so this is make it or break it. We're going to go ahead and start off with you.
Nothing like a surprise cameo to really take moviegoers, out of a movie and blow their mind. While certain films use this device to a fault, Zoolander, looking at you, it can also make a movie when done correctly. Stan Lee kills it with every appearance he's made so far. But we also have Harold and Kumar with Neil Patrick Harris. We also have This Is the End with numerous cameos. But the celebrity cameo that I have picked for the best film cameo of all time is, God damn it, Bill fucking Murray in Zoolander. I know that's not his middle name. I know that's not his middle name, but I am going with Bill Murray in Zombieland. He is. I think he did a great job in that movie as the cameo. So I'm going to go with that one, and I will relinquish the rest of my time.
All right, and yes, it is Bill Murray in Zombieland. He is not in Zoolander, although because Kevin made the comment of Zoolander, probably threw him off. But Joe, we will go ahead and move on to you with your 1-minute opening.
Cameos. Everyone loves them. Whether it's blink and you'll miss it, like George Harrison in Life of Brian, or a small nod like Keith Richards in Pirates of the Caribbean, or even an Avenger in a coffee shop shouting "What the shit" at his phone. Everyone reacts the same. You turn to the person you're seeing the movie with and go, "Hey, that's that person." But sometimes the stars align, and even a cameo you're expecting can elevate the movie beyond what it already is. And I can think of none better than my pick, because 1 month before the film's release, the world lost a shining light from the comic book world. And although chronologically this wouldn't be this person's last cameo, compared to what he did in Captain Marvel and Endgame, this felt deeper. And that's why I've gone with Stan Lee's cameo in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And I will cede the rest of my time.
All right, so we have Bill Murray in Zombieland, Stan Lee in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Kevin, we are moving on to you with your 2-minute. Time starts when you start.
All right. I know the Stan Lee cameo in Spider-Verse is all, sad and teary and all that. We will get to that later, I'm sure. But I want to tell you this little story about the Zoolander. Jesus, I'm on that for some reason. The Zombieland cameo with Bill Murray. 2 days away from shooting the scene, the director was set to shoot this scene with no celebrity. They were just going to fight a bunch of zombies in the mansion. But Woody Harrelson called Bill Murray, and he has no agent, no email address, no manager. He just calls him out of the blue, and his buddy Bill Murray shows up and just does this scene. So 4-minute, 17-second scene, and excellent job he does. Considered one of the greatest of all time, one of the greatest cameos of all time in Zombieland. So I think that really says a lot about the camaraderie they have between actors that Woody has with Bill Murray. And with the Ghostbusters theme playing in the background as he makes an appearance, there's not a whole lot there that can make it much better. Anyway, as this progresses, I will get into more about the scene itself, but I just wanted to tell you that story just for context. So I will cede the rest of my time here.
All right, Kevin, giving up the rest of his 20 seconds. Joe, 2 minutes on the clock. Time starts when you start.
Stanley has had great cameos since X-Men, but this one is not just a fun appearance. It's a great performance. It's 2 lines, and it's a great performance. A month on, I think everyone was waiting to see what this cameo would be, and somehow the 2 lines he speaks just resonate. The first line, "I'm going to miss him," that hits everyone hard. There was no way that this was not the intention behind that cameo. It was a great cameo already, but the surrounding circumstances elevated it. It always fits, eventually, was perfectly delivered. Bill Murray is a great comic actor, one of the greatest of all time. His appearance in the movie is a great surprise. But after that, it's Bill Murray doing what Bill Murray does, being great comedically. The difference is it's the best moment of the movie. You look at other certain cameos like George Harrison or like Chris Evans in Free Guy. I think they're all great moments, but you remember the rest of the movie. When people talk about Zombieland, they talk about Bill Murray's appearance. It is the moment of the movie, whereas this is a cameo appearance. It's something that you remember. It's something that just is so small in the movie, but it's so powerful and resonant. Not just it builds up Miles Morales. It's what Miles Morales needs to hear, and it's forgotten. It's there for the audience, but the rest of the story is there too. The dialogue is perfectly written, delivered, and it doesn't draw you out of the movie. You can compare Lee to Damon, but in his appearances in things like Thor Ragnarok and Deadpool 2, but this just has more heart. Bill Murray is like Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder. It's the best part of the movie, but that's not what a cameo should be. A cameo should be a fun little moment or an important little moment, but it shouldn't be the best part of the movie. Murray comes in and does what he does best, like Cate Blanchett does in Hot Fuzz. She does a great performance, great delivery, and she's gone. Stanley, we expect the fun little moments, but not a moment of this heart. And it wasn't just his death that created that heart.
And time. All right, gentlemen, we are now moving on to the 4-minute debate. And again, time starts when one of y'all starts talking.
I'll go ahead and say a cameo is defined on Google by a small character part in a play or movie played by a distinguished actor or a celebrity. So it doesn't have to be a small part, doesn't have to be an insignificant part, doesn't have to be anything like that. And Stan Lee was in stuff way before just X-Men. He was in the TV movie, The Trial of the Incredible Hulk. He had filmed a cameo for the movie Blade, which was actually cut out. But I mean, Stan Lee is a fixation of the word cameo. I agree with you on that, but it's almost become an expectation. So when it became time for him to appear in this film, I think they actually took it a little too far. He went. He was he was actually in this movie. Let's see. He was actually in this movie. His glasses appear. after the credits as a tribute image of him. He appears in multiple quick moments, like a few frames of a train passing as Miles is swinging through New York. He voices the Earth 67 version of Peter Parker's boss, J. Jonah Jameson, in the post-credit scene. So I feel like that dilutes his lasting cameo, like you're talking about. Although it is a great cameo, talking about Bill Murray's cameo, this was totally unexpected, even by the director. The director didn't even expect it. 2 days before direction. And, you know, Woody Harrelson calls him up, and now you have Bill Murray in your movie, and then he gets whacked with a golf club. And
with Bill Murray, you get what you expect from Bill Murray. With Stanley's cameos throughout Marvel and the MCU, you have gotten fun little moments. You know, his Deadpool, here comes chastity, and all this other stuff. It's always been a fun little moment. This moment already had heart, in which was what was already and what continued to be an incredible movie. But the circumstances, the way things happened a month before this movie released, just elevates every line he speaks. He speaks 2 lines. I'm going to miss him. It always fits eventually. And it's just something surrounding that movie was always bound to make it successful. The stars aligned for this movie. It's horrible that they had to align in the way they did, but it just elevates that cameo. Bill Murray does elevate Zombieland. It makes it more memorable, but it really is the best moment of the movie. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse has so many more moments surrounding it, but this cameo is still something that sticks out from it. It's not just because of the things that happened around it; it's because of the performance Stan Lee gives in those lines. You watch it, although what happened before gives it that more emotionality. The way he speaks those lines and the way he speaks to Miles Morales is phenomenal, because he understands that character, because it's part of the world that he created.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though, is Bill Murray actually came into this situation, and I'm not trying to downplay Stan Lee or the situation, because I understand the gravity of that, and it is a sad situation, and I think Stan Lee is a great person, and I mourn the loss of him, but you know, when you have called in Bill Murray and he said, "Just give me the script," and he just went off of this script. And made it hilarious, and it's a point of the movie that people actually know off the top of their head, versus this other part in a movie that he wasn't even meant to be in. Really, they kind of like forced some quotes that he had already said. You know, he was already sick years prior, and I think these were quotes that were forced into this movie.
And time. All right, well, with that, we are moving into our 1 minute close. Kevin, you started us off, so you're going to start off the 1 minute closing section.
Like I said, Stan Lee is what you think of when you think of a cameo. There's no question about it. But when you think of the situation where Bill Murray comes into this scene 2 days from shooting, doesn't even know the scene, and just kind of wings it, I think that makes it a lot more. It gives it a lot more gravity, and makes it a lot more memorable, in my mind at least, and gives it a lot more humor, even on top of the humor that's there. We are all Emma Stone in that situation, thinking, "Oh my God, it is Bill Murray," and he just, shooting Bill Murray is like, holy crap. So it's one of those things where I'm not downplaying Stan Lee, but I just think that he would have been better served in a different cameo.
And time. All right, Joe, we are moving on to you. It is now your 1 minute close.
I think throughout the years, comedies have always had cameos. You look at it from Monty Python through Airplane, through, I say comedies, but A Million Ways to Die in the West, Ted, all the way through to Zombieland and Tropic Thunder, that comedies have always had cameos just to try and gain that extra laugh. And while Zombieland does that well, to put it in a comic book movie into this dramatic effect is phenomenal. You say Stan Lee is a typical answer when it comes to cameos, but Bill Murray in Zombieland is also a typical answer when asking about great cameos. And while it does elevate that movie, Stan Lee's feels like the final note in 20 years of great cameos. And although it wasn't his last, it was presented to us so soon after we lost him that it feels like the last and was a perfect send-off. We got what followed in Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame, but this felt like the perfect send-off. Stan believed that we all have a hero inside of us, and this scene mirrors that perfectly, keeping alive Stan's beliefs that encouraging words, even though he is gone from this world. And that's why it makes it the best cameo, because it's not just great for the movie, not just great for as a cameo, but it's also great for the person he was.
And time. All right, as we kick both Kevin and Joe out and bring in the three judges. Not a lot of fact checking in this one. Just some facts. We had Bill Murray versus Stan Lee. Some also notable cameos that were missed. You have Matt Damon in Matt Damon. Thor Ragnarok, Deadpool 2, Euro Trip, and then also Stan Lee in any other MCU film. But with that, enough of me talking about great cameos. I need to know who is getting this vote. We're going to go ahead and start off with Noah.
For me, I'm going to go ahead and say Kevin, just because he made his argument that his cameo was more memorable and just, I guess, served the purpose of the movie, and it was a part of the movie. So,
all right, Noah giving his vote to Kevin. Jake, we are now moving on to you. Who gets your point and why?
Tight one. A lot of background information in there. Not a ton of talking from either competitor about why the cameo is actually best in the realm of the movie. But Joe gave us a little more of that by explaining the lines and actually explaining the cameo a little more.
All right, so Malcolm, this is the first time we've had it in this match. We are down to a split decision, so I need you to unsplit us and tell us who gets the points.
Yeah, this is definitely a really tough one because, ultimately my vote is going to go to Kevin, but it's mostly because, Kevin brought up the fact that he felt like Stan Lee's cameo was kind of oversaturated in Spider-Verse because of the fact that he was put up a lot in a lot of frames. It was a good fight. There was good points on both sides, and it's really tough to argue against Stan Lee in the first place.
It definitely is tough to argue against Stan Lee. But Kevin, you did it as I kick all the judges out in the back and bring back our two competitors. Great job, both of you. As we are moving on to question number 4. And I wish I had a nice, fun segue from cameos into this, but I don't. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it. What is the best Ridley Scott film of the 2000s? Joe, it is your turn to open us up. So you have a minute on the clock. Time starts when you start.
Ridley Scott has had a fantastic career. 5 decades of filmmaking and at least one top 10 movie in each. Alien, Blade Runner, Thelma and Louise, The Martian. But we're not talking about the decades that those movies were released in. No, we're talking about the 2000s here. And there is nothing Ridley Scott did in that decade that tops the first movie he released in that decade. 2000's Gladiator. Not only is it a Best Picture winner that 21 years later everyone still agrees deserved the award, it was a sword and sandals epic, the quality of which we've not seen since Ben-Hur. It's one of Hans Zimmer's greatest scores. And although he'd done movies like LA Confidential and Quick and the Dead, this movie announced Russell Crowe and it announced Joaquin Phoenix to the world. It is still one of the most quoted movies, it is still one of the most revered Best Picture winners. It is not only the best movie Ridley Scott released in the 2000s, it's arguably Ridley Scott's best movie he's ever made.
All right, Joe, starting us off with Gladiator. Kevin, it is your turn to start us off. 1 minute on the clock to open up your argument.
For the best Ridley Scott film of the 2000s, I selected Black Hawk Down. Black Hawk Down tells the story of a U.S. military raid that went disastrously wrong when optimistic plans ran into unexpected resistance in Somalia. 18 Americans lost their lives, 70 more wounded, and within days, President Clinton pulled out troops that were on a humanitarian mission. What happened was enemy rockets brought down 2 of the helicopters. The warlord's troops gathered quickly and surrounded the U.S. positions. So this movie is definitely a true story, unlike Gladiator. So this is definitely an interesting battle as far as going against Gladiator. Josh Hartnett, Ewan McGregor, Ewan Bremner, Eric Bana, William Fichtner, and Jeremy Piven all star as leaders of different.
And time. All right, now we're moving on to the 2-minute segment. Joe, since you started us off, you are starting off this segment.
There's 10 minutes difference between the runtime of Black Hawk Down and Gladiator. 10 minutes being in Gladiator, there's 10 minutes more in Gladiator, but Black Hawk Down certainly feels its length, and I think there are chunks of that movie that I think are considered boring. I think in terms of looking at Ridley Scott in the 2000s, I think American Gangster trumps Black Hawk Down, but Gladiator trumps the lot. To my mind, arguably the best thing to come out of Black Hawk Down was the Black Cop Down joke in We're the Millers. It's mostly revisited now to see early performances from some of the bigger names in the movies today. It's not a horrible movie. I think the script is slightly messy. It's slightly selective with the story it decides to tell when it's based on a true story. Gladiator is an epic, from story to acting to score. Even smaller members of the cast, well, they have played smaller roles. They are by no means smaller actors. We're talking Oliver Reed and Richard Harris here. They are phenomenal in the moments they are given. It is quotable, memorable, still talked about as a great movie 21 years later. As I've said before, it won Best Picture and nobody argued with it winning Best Picture. Black Hawk Down wasn't even in the conversation. I mean, what we're talking about here is an epic, a full-on epic, the likes of which we had not seen since Ben-Hur. Phenomenal performances from Russell Crowe and Joaquin Phoenix, Connie Nielsen. The whole, everything around this movie is phenomenal. The supporting cast, the story it tells going from A to B, it has the epicness. It is about revenge. It is about not giving up. Everything it has around it is just phenomenal. I watched it very recently just because I wanted to, which is not something I find myself doing with Black Hawk Down. Black Hawk Down is a fine movie, but it has a messy script. It's selective with the story it tries to tell when it's based on a true story, and that's why it can't be.
And time. All right, Kevin, we are moving on to you again. 2 minutes on the clock.
All right, Joe wants to talk about the 10 minutes difference in Gladiator's favor, but I say it is a mashup, a homage, to put it charitably, of Spartacus and the flop in 1964, Fall of the Roman Empire, with indecipherable fight scenes. Roger Ebert put it correctly when he said the movie employs depression as a substitute for personality and believes that if the characters are bitter and morose enough, we won't notice how dull they are. And truly believe that the characters are really, if you don't recall, the Gladiators most is about Rome's most kick-ass yet peace-loving general Maximus, who wants to be done with war so he can return to his farm and family. Yet his son, the Emperor's son Commodus, which played by Joaquin Phoenix, would prefer to be in charge instead. But why wasn't he in charge 20 years prior? That's the question. So anyway, moving on to Black Hawk Down, it was in the talks for Best Director, Best Cinematography. It won Best Film Editing and Best Sound. So as far as Academy Awards, it was definitely in talks for that. There were, as far as adapting the story, Black Hawk Down, A Story of Modern War by Mark Bowden, they did have to take 100 key figures in the book and condense it to 39 just to get it to that 10-minute difference that you're talking about. So this is a very serious and a very intense book that they had to narrow down just for accuracy, for military, and to honor these people, just to get it right.
And time. All right, gentlemen, we're moving on to the last 4 minutes debate of the main round. If we go to the next one, I will explain that one later. But 4 minutes on the clock. Time starts when someone starts.
Well, just to address the first one of the points you made there about Commodus, it's established very early on in Oliver Reed's conversations. Richard Harris's conversations with Maximus that Commodus is not suitable for the role. You can see it in the way he trains. You can see it in the way he tries to fight. You can see that he's just, even the final fight where he deliberately stabs Maximus before, he is a coward. He is not suitable to lead. Maximus wants to lead, and I think like most soldiers, he wants the war to end and he wants to go back to his family, but he knows the job he has to do and he understands the job that he has to do. Black Hawk Down, like you said, tried to condense the characters, and we've seen that in a 3.5-hour movie, you don't need to remove characters. You can keep them in there, as we've discussed with Lord of the Rings. You can keep them in there and you do not have to change it. When you're trying to tell a true story, I admit you can be selective for the story you're telling, but I think the issue here, and especially with the cast you have, you don't really give any, because there's so many characters you still have to go through, and with a cast like that, you're still not quite sure who the lead is. It is an ensemble cast, but the problem with that is you don't really have time to focus on anyone. When you're trying to tell a story about people's struggle, about someone's struggle, you should have a character to focus on, which is what you do have with Maximus, which is what you don't have in Black Hawk Down.
Yeah, I agree, but the stupidest, the worst part of this movie is the contrived way it ham-handedly sets up the final fight between Maximus and Commodus. Maximus's fame is such that Commodus decides that he has to personally fight the slave in one-on-one combat for control of an empire, that just boggles my mind. Put it in modern perspective. Imagine in the 80s, Ronald Reagan felt so threatened by Hulk Hogan that he fought him for the presidency. And that was a time when Hulk Hogan was so big in America and so loved by Americans. So, I mean, that would be just so ridiculous to even think of. That is what I think about when I think about Gladiator. But mine is actually a true story that actually happened, and we're trying to honor these people by putting them on the screen. We have had to narrow it down, but that was just Ridley Scott's choice and the screenwriter's choice to narrow it down and not make it into a multi-film situation.
And that's the mistake that Ridley Scott makes when it comes to the story surrounding Commodus. You see it from the start. You see the way he sees the way that his father fawns over Maximus, and he wants that. But he also wants power, and that's what he wants. But when he gets that power, you see it in the world. It's the fact of ancient Rome. He does not have the popularity, and he is losing that popularity. And every time he thinks that if he can show that he is more powerful by killing Maximus, that will make him loved. And it's the fact of the movie. You see it surrounding with his relationship with his sister, his relationship with his nephew, is that he believes that all he has to do is show that power and show that, and he will be loved. But the point is, you see it straight away with the conversations that Richard Harris has with Joaquin Phoenix before he's murdered, is that it's not just about that. You have to be someone that can be loved. It's not just about the power. And that's why he wants to give Maximus the power. It is about Commodus's jealousy and about the fact that jealousy ends up being what kills him.
Yes, but that's after 20 years. In Black Hawk Down, we're talking about a quick situational thing that happens, and we're following multiple groups of people and explaining how intelligence has discovered the time and location of the meeting by the lieutenants of the warlord Muhammad Farah Aid. And the taxi will park next to the building to guide the airborne troops, and they have to call on quick reinforcements. And then we follow another story where and fall from a helicopter and is injured when he misses the descent rope, and then a pilot is taken prisoner. I mean, it's a very quick paced movie, and we're following a quick pace of a lot of different groups, a lot of different forces.
And that's true, but it's true, and it did the best it could. But the thing is, Gladiator is not necessarily a story that needed to be told, but it is a story that is told to the best of Ridley Scott's ability. It trounces almost every other movie he's ever made because it's phenomenally done.
And time. All right, another great argument between the two of you as we move on to the 1 minute closing. Joe, you started us off, so again, you're going to start us off on our closings.
When telling a historical epic, you can be selective with history. Okay, when you're basing it on a true story, there's only a certain level to which I think you can be selective. Otherwise, it becomes just based on. Both casts are phenomenal, but I think performances are very different. Gladiator's performances are phenomenal, from Russell Crowe through Joaquin Phoenix, Oliver Reed, Connie Nielsen, Richard Harris. The fact that some parts of the plot don't make sense, I don't agree with in any way. They're all established. It's just done a lot more subtly than Black Hawk Down is. That's probably the reason why Black Hawk Down was in the conversation for best sound, because it sounds good, but it's still messy. The script is messy. The execution is messy. Black Hawk Down may have been an important story that needed to be told, and it was done the best way that story could be done in a 2 hour, 20-minute movie. Whereas Gladiator was not a story that needed to be told, but despite its 2.5 hour, 2 hour, 35-minute runtime, it flows seamlessly all the way through. The score is phenomenal. The acting is phenomenal. Cinematography, visual effects on every level. Gladiator is not only Ridley Scott's best movie of the 2000s, but arguably one of his
and best. Time. All right, Kevin, we're moving on to you. 1 minute to close out this argument.
The cinematography of Black Hawk Down avoids bright colors of the normal upbeat combat movies, and its drab, dusty tones gradually drain light as night falls. The latter scenes of the movie feel chilly and forlorn. The surrounded troops are alone and endangered in the night. The screenplay is working from the book by Mark Bowden. It understands the material, and it tells it clearly and efficiently. We are involved not only in the experience of the day, but also in its strategy and its unfolding realities. The sound produced by Hans Zimmer, as well as he did in Gladiator. He did a great job in this movie as well. Films like this are more useful than these other kind of movies because we need to honor our American troops. And I feel like Black Hawk Down is one of those that really does do its best to honor the troops. So Black Hawk Down is the best Ridley Scott film.
And time. All right, as we kick both of the competitors in the back and get our judges up, just a little bit of fact checking. As far as the run times, Gladiator is 2 hours and 35 minutes. Black Hawk Down is not 10 minutes less. It's 2 hours and 32 minutes. So only 3 minutes less instead of 10. Black Hawk Down was nominated for Best Sound Mixing and Best Film Editing as far as the Oscars go. Whereas Gladiator, of course, Best Picture and then also Best Actor. And then as far as the Black Hawk Down joke that was said earlier, it is during a scene they're doing Pictionary. The fake son and We're the Millers, it draws what looks like a dick, and then Jennifer Aniston's character starts yelling, penis, dick, all that stuff, and then she decides it's black and then decides to name that film. I also learned whenever you are searching Black Hawk Down, add something else before you hit search. You're welcome. All right, as we move on to Jake, who gets your vote and why?
Both you guys did a phenomenal job of arguing why the picture is better. So the only, I mean, you both listed the cast, the score, and all that goodness. So the difference is, as Joe pointed out, that Gladiator did win Best Picture, whereas Black Hawk Down was not in the conversation. So since the topic is Best Film, I will go with Joe on that.
All right, and Malcolm, we are going on to you. Who gets your vote and why?
First off, I really want to see the Hulk Hogan versus Ronald Reagan fight for president. But that being said, yeah, it was really tough. Like I was flip flopping all through that because Kevin was bringing up some points, but then Joe was swatting it away, and I mean just because of that, I'm going to have to go with Joe on this as well. But it was a great fight all in all.
Which means, and your winner, Hot Fuzz Joe Farrelly. Joe, it was a fantastic fight. I imagine you're sweating. I imagine Kevin's sweating. I know 100% I'm sweating, and I didn't have to do anything during this. But you were able to get the win. How are you feeling after that?
Yeah, I feel good. The prep time, and this is my own fault, wasn't ideal, but I feel like I'd chosen the right answers at the right time. Those last two arguments really were very tough. Obviously, losing question 3. Some very excellent points made on Black Hawk Down, which I think is a very good movie. But when you're arguing, you've got to accentuate any flaw you can find. I had watched Gladiator recently, which was fortunate for me. I still think it's a phenomenal movie. Kevin really had me on the ropes for those, especially those last two. Phenomenal debate, and hopefully next time I can come in with a little bit better prep.
Definitely. Well, again, since this is a tournament that we're doing, you will have a match coming up. I don't know how soon. I don't put these together, thankfully, because it would be about a year and a half before you get your next match. But you will be taking on the winner of 2 rookies. It'll either be Austin Howell or Chad Webb. Either of those 2 that you're looking forward to taking on?
Well, I think you and Kevin have a match coming up against maybe a new team in their TMG teams. Do believe one of them, I finally managed to get over the loss of Amaru Moses from TMG and found myself a new teammate. So might be interesting to play Chad. But the thing is, when it comes to debate, you have that prep time. It's not about who knows more. It's just about who can get their right arguments. And with rookies, you never really know what's going to come. So I'll be interested to play both, but Chad might be a little bit more interesting. But obviously, there may be another debate division out there where I might have a upcoming debate against someone else very soon. Jacob.
I wonder what you are talking about. Unfortunately, we do not promote other channels. However, I will say on Multiplex Entertainment, eventually one of these days, you'll see the two of us. I was right. The 2 of us take each other on in a fan zone debate. That's what they're called now. We'll see how that one goes. But again, Joe, good luck with that one. Congrats on the win. Good luck in the tournament. As I kick you out, and then we'll bring in our unfortunate second place finisher, Kevin. Kevin, I will say, of the 4 questions, you did get a point out of them, but it was very neck and neck the entire time. How are you feeling after that?
I mean, like I said, coming in, I feel just honored to be in this position to play Joe in the winner's bracket. I mean, I don't really have like much to. I don't really have much to lose here. But you know, I gave him the best I could fight, and I feel like those last two were the best I could actually fight. You know, going down 2-0, I really wanted to give him my best, but it was what it was. I never really could find my footing at the beginning, but I did my best.
Well, and the best is all you can do. And I'd be afraid to take you on at your best. Unfortunately, with this being a tournament, with that loss, it will be a little bit before we see you again. But definitely, I just want to say for everyone, we would love to see you again out in the future. So, Kevin, I'll go ahead and kick you out in the back. And I'm just going to go ahead and close it out. I just want to say, don't worry, I'm not the normal person here. That is usually Aaron Canol. He's a lot better looking. His jokes are a little funnier than mine. But if you like this video, be sure to check out all the other videos that we do, because we do a lot of stuff on TMG Entertainment. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe. That's the correct term. Follow is more of a Twitter thing, because we do a lot of good stuff. And we're in the middle of a tournament, so you'll want to check out the rest of these tournaments. But for Joe, for Kevin, Jake, Malcolm, and Noah, I just want to say, everyone, have a good day. We'll see you later.